As you guys already know, because you wouldn't be clicking on this video, Sony has dropped the Fx30. What does that actually mean for camera buyers, especially up-and-coming cinematographers? Let's get into the specs and what I think. Now, if you're clicking here on this video, it's because Sony has just dropped the Fx30. Now, this is the same body as the Fx30, but this is not the Fx30. This here, my friends, is the Fx3. Bigger brother to the Fx30, but I just wanted to go over some of the specs. A lot of the specs are the exact same specs from the Fx3, but there are a couple of things that this camera gets being newer that the Fx3 still doesn't have. Sony. But let's get into that, because first off, I want to say keeping the same body as the Fx3 makes me feel a little bit cheated. I think it's a good thing in hindsight, but initially I was angry because this is an APS-C camera. This is Super 35, and it gets the same exact body as my $4,000 camera. What is going on, Sony? But in actuality, people don't know a whole lot about cameras. When you're going on set and you have a client, they're gonna look at your setup and they're gonna look at the camera. And usually to the client, the bigger the camera, the more that they should be paying for you to use it. Not always necessarily the case. We have Fujifilm doing incredible things. We got Canon doing incredible things, but for the most part, when they see the camera that you're carrying, the size does matter. That's what she said. And for the Fx30, it gives you the same form factor as the Fx3. Now, with that being said, when the Fx30 drops, there are certain things that you do not have to wait for, that you would have to wait for typically when the camera drops. There might not be camera cages ready. Don't have to worry about that. We use the Fx3 camera cages. There's accessories that can be made for the top handle, because we all know the top handle is pretty flimsy. In case you guys didn't know, I broke my top handle. But there are a bunch of things that you will be able to get for this camera that are already out and on the market and in abundance from third-party people, companies, whatever, man. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was all of the specs that you get with the Fx3, you essentially get with the Fx30, except low light capabilities are, of course, lessened because of the smaller sensor. When you have this smaller sensor, you're not going to be getting the base ISOs that you get from the Fx30. Being the base ISO for the Fx3 is 640 and 12,800. Well, it's a little bit different in a way that if you're using the new Cine modes that come with the Fx3 with the last update, the base ISO is 800, which actually makes you match up to the Fx30 because the base ISO for the Fx30 is 800. It does have a dual ISO, but it is a much smaller ISO, of course. And with that range, if you're in a controlled area and you have lights, it's not a big deal. But the things that you don't get on the Fx3 that you do get on the Fx30 might actually help you guys if you're a solo content creator. You have the focus breathing compensation, which is on the Sony a7 Mark IV, but it is not on the Fx3. Sony, can we get that? But when you're shooting at 120 frames per second, you do get a crop. The crop, I mean, if you're shooting at 120 frames per second, in my mind, for the type of shooting that I do and I frequently see, you are either going to be really far away from what you're shooting, which would actually open up how big the picture is going to be for you anyway, or you're really close to what you're shooting, which kind of still works out for you with the crop because it's just cropping in. But hey, that's neither here nor there. Pretty much you get the same color science as the Fx3. It becomes the perfect B camera to the Fx3 when you have the Fx30. And the biggest beast in the room, the elephant that is sitting there in the corner that nobody can miss is that when you get the FX30, essentially you have everything that the FX3 is at a cheaper price. $1,800 as opposed to $3,600 in tax and all that. Yeah, so $2,000 as opposed to $4,000 to get you in. Now, in my personal opinion, after you look at all the specs, is it a credible camera for content creation? Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You feel a little less like, oh my God, I'm spending so much on a camera for content creation. You're also getting a camera that's gonna be an entry-level cinema camera. And when I say entry-level, I'm not talking about cannibalizing any more of the Sony line. No, I'm looking at you, Blackmagic. Yes, you. The batteries in the Sony cameras are much better for how they are used if you are a solo content creator or a person just getting into cinema than the batteries that you use for the Blackmagic Pocket camera. That name is long. Why is that name so long? But the batteries are better on the Sony system for using the camera for longer periods of time than what you get stock for the Blackmagic Pocket cinema camera. With that being said, that already takes that camera to a different level if you're a beginner. Also, if you're a beginner and you're working by yourself, there is less equipment that you have to purchase to get started. The great thing about Sony is they have amazing autofocus. And I do believe that the FX30's biggest competitor is going to be the Blackmagic Pocket cinema camera. And with the inclusion of autofocus, as good as Sony's autofocus to a camera that has no autofocus, you already winning, baby. So I really do see that, especially with Blackmagic, but at the same time, Canon just released a Super 35 camera that everybody was talking about. The C7 is a monster, is a beast, but then you get the FX30 and it's like, well, not to mention with the addition of the FX30, I do believe that more crop sensor cameras are going to be dropped by Sony. We already see the writing on the wall. They just dropped 3 new lenses for APS-C, not to mention with the E-mount, which is so incredible because all of the E-mount lenses could work on any E-mount camera. Even if you have the FX30, but you have lenses for your older Sony cameras, they're E-mount. They're all gonna be interchangeable. You don't have to invest as much into the camera to get started. With the top handle that gives you the audio and the different channels of audio, that already steps up the game for Sony. I think it's gonna be an amazing time in camera world. I'm telling you guys, things are getting so good and the barrier of entry is starting to become so low, especially with all of the things that iPhone is beginning to do, or actually has done. We are now seeing a time where it's gonna be easier than ever to be a content creator. But with that being said, now is the time for you guys to learn certain things to make your cinematography better. You can stay right here. You can click that link, click the button down there, hit the button up, you feel me? Go ahead and tap that bell too, because I'm gonna be showing you ways to stay relevant in the world of videography and cinematography. I also do photography, so if you guys are interested in that, we're gonna take it to a whole nother level this year. Please like and subscribe again. We are trying to get monetized because, you know, I'm trying to be here more often for you, buddies. I don't want to work as much. I want to be here with my people, with my tribe. So I'll see you guys in the next one. And what do you think about the FX30? Please let me know below. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. I love you guys.